All right, Baltimore, it is time. Sports is drawing ever nearer, and the most exciting news is that the NBA has a barber shop in the bubble.
Oh, joy! Yeah. Have you seen the picture of Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis enjoying those inflatable bubbles outside the Grand Floridian?
I have not. I am looking that up right now. Did you say Luca and
And
Krista?
yeah, the post has a story that they're enjoying beers
Oh,
in
inflatable
inflatable tubs.
pools.
Yeah, I could
Ha!
I could never do that when I go down at Disney. They don't allow that on the grass usually.
Yeah, that's a funny picture. I watched Marcus Smart and Enes Kanter have a swimming race. Marcus Smart talked up some big game. He's like, I always beat Ennis, and then Ennis beat him. But it was a pretty close race, though, in the pool.
Yeah,
Uh, but that's a little bit of the basketball. We'll get back to that in a little bit because baseball is up first. That's the most important sport here on this channel.
and it's the first sport that will be coming back outside of the four on the four major sports
Yep.
that it
Once
beat.
again, recording on a Monday, so we've got a couple days till Thursday here.
Yeah, and I kind of want to talk about. We'll get to some particular things in baseball in a second, but I kind of want to talk about what does the 60 game sprint. Who does it benefit the most? What teams maybe wouldn't have made it on the normal 162 game marathon, but could actually do it in a sprint. And for example, last year at the All Star break, the Texas Rangers and the Pittsburgh Pirates were breaking even or it on their records and were in the wild card hunt. But after the All Star break, they fell apart, and that was in about 100 games that they were in the mix for things. So there are teams that could benefit greatly from this 60 game marathon and could sneak into the playoffs otherwise. And
Yeah, I mean, last week I was talking about Tampa Bay Rays. I think they're one of the teams that's poised to do pretty well in the 60 games. Um, but I'm not sure where all this is going to happen. I know the AL West is probably going to be a tight race. The Astros are definitely a force to be reckoned with. Oakland Athletics just always seem to find a way to win
yeah,
this last decade.
as they make
Um,
pitching appear out of magic.
yeah. I would actually be interested to see how Joe Madden would deal with the Oakland Athletics.
Yeah.
What magic he'd be able to do with
Yeah,
them.
and it's,
But speaking of Madden, the Angels, I mean, they
yeah,
added a couple new pieces.
and not only
So,
not only that, a lot of their injured arms had time to come back. Shohei
yep.
Ohtani, Andrew Heaney, they're all ready to go. The only one that isn't ready is Julio Teheran, who caught the
Mhm.
virus before reporting to camp, and will be about a week behind. But they've had enough time to be healthy. They still have Trout. They have Anthony Rendon. Pujols could
Yeah,
benefit
big addition.
from short
Yep.
season. That'll be good.
I think this might benefit Pujols, a 60-game season, that wear and tear on his aging body.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think so too.
So I think he might be able to focus, relax a little bit more.
Yeah,
And I'm not saying he's going to hit 30 home runs in 60 games, but I think he could get a respectable maybe 15.
yeah.
Uh,
I could see 10 and 260 average for him.
yeah.
I'd say another team, and this benefits greatly the circumstances of the virus. The Mets. Think of the Mets
Yeah.
roster going into spring training. Where you had an aging Robinson Cano.
Mhm.
Where are you putting Yoenis Cespedes, who you weren't sure would play the field? You have the glut of outfielders. Jed Lowry is a myth. And then the virus hits, and now the National League has a designated hitter, and suddenly, oh, you don't have to worry about Robinson Cano lagging in the field. You can DH him a few days and put Jeff McNeil. You don't have to worry about Dominic Smith or Yoenis Cespedes in questionable outfielding. Just throw them in the DH position, rotate everyone, be fresh. The Mets probably, out of all 15 National League teams, benefit the most from the changed rules in the shortened season.
Yeah. So I think the Mets can make a good run. But, I mean, the Braves and Nationals are nothing to sniff against. But
And you never know what
the-
Girardi's going to pull with the Phillies.
yeah, I mean, Sir Didi is definitely, as we saw as Yankee fans these last several years, he's a great clubhouse addition, keeps everything light. Sometimes I don't understand his Twitter emoji posts afterwards, but I think he's going to really help that clubhouse turn around and maybe get them back to where they were in 08, 09 when they went to back-to-back World Series. So I think the National League East is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
The only thing that was going against the Mets, I mean, preseason's preseason, but the Mets got trounced.
Yeah, they
by
get
the Yankees. What was it, like a 15-3 run differential?
Yeah, 9-3 in the first game, and then a 6-0 shutout.
Yeah.
Game.
Sunday's game featured 5 home runs, all of which were at least 400 feet.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do against that Yankees lineup. I've joked with my dad that the Yankees could theoretically finish like 50-10 in this 60-game spring. Is that feasible?
Probably not.
Probably not.
But 40-20 is very doable.
40-20 is definitely very doable.
Yeah. The only thing going against the Yankees is that Garrett Cole has been historically a slow starter. That all his losses last year came in the first half. He was 9-0 with like a 2 ERA or not even a 2 ERA in the second half of the season,
Mm-hmm.
but the first half he was an average pitcher. And I remember he did get lit up in a early mid-season start at Yankee Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, the flip side of that is come playoff time, he should be in what is traditionally his mid-season form.
Yeah,
And
and then we'll see that with Tanaka too, when he hopefully gets back from his head injury.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at the Yankee lineup, watching the game, the preseason game, and it's very stacked. Definitely, I think one of the best in the lineups. And I know they're starting off with 30 players, and they're going to drop it down to 28 and then to 26. And I'm not sure where the Yankees are going to put some of these guys, because there's not really like I know they've got the thing in Nashville, but that's still not really like the same.
Yeah.
But what do you do with guys like Tauchman, Frazier? I mean, Frazier hit a home run. I still think he's good. I'm still rooting for him, but I don't know what the Yankees do at this point. Do they package him up because they've signed Hicks to a stupid long-term deal, and Gardner's still on the team, even though they should just make him a bench coach if they want to keep him in the locker room, free up space that way. But
I'd say with the virus, you gotta try to keep your depth on hand. You don't know when someone might test positive, and then you're suddenly out a star player for a while. For example, the two most notable cases that hit Major League Baseball for the virus have been Freddie Freeman and Eduardo Rodriguez.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Freddie Freeman
with what, a 104.5?
104.5 fever. Felt like he was going to die, and Eduardo Rodriguez said he felt like he was 100 years old and completely debilitated. So
this just shows even the best professionals in the best shapes of their lives are not immune.
No one's immune. And imagine if that hits Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton mid-season. Then you're suddenly out for a chunk of the remaining season, maybe the playoffs, and it's good to have that Clint Frazier or Miguel Andujar that you're able to do it. And also the second thing is, last year proved you can never have enough depth. The reason we have this problem is because all these players had to come in when the entire lineup was on the shelf in April, May, and June, and everyone performed out of their size.
You were getting some sort of playing time. You were sent back down into the minors at that point, which I don't think you're really going to be getting as much and as serious and stuff like that.
Well, the Yankees have their taxi squad in, I believe it's in Scranton Wilkes-Barre, that they're using the AAA stadium as for the players not on the Major League roster, but on their 60-game COVID roster.
Yeah,
That'll be where they do it. One team that is not sure where it's playing right now is the Toronto Blue Jays. We talked about how the city of Toronto gave permission and that the province of Ottawa gave permission, and they were waiting on the Canadian government to give permission, which was expected. But
we were so sure of that. I even joked that maybe Tampa Bay or someone could, or not Tampa Bay, the Washington Nationals. If they didn't get permission, they could go back to Montreal.
Yeah, but the Nationals got permission to play, but the Blue Jays got denied. So with less than they have about 10 days to figure out where they're playing. The season starts in less than a week, but the Blue Jays have their first, I believe, 5 or 6 games on the road, so they have a little extra time.
Yeah, thank goodness for that. At least.
They're the best equipped stadium on hand is their spring training grounds, but Florida is not the best.
Yeah, they're not too happy about that.
They're not too keen. And their
minor leagues in, Buffalo?
Buffalo, but the stadium would need several weeks of renovation.
Yeah, so they were in talks with borrowing with, I believe, the Pittsburgh Pirates, which I think some of those home games would conflict. So at that point...
Well, they said only 7 would conflict, and 6 of those are after, I think, after September 15th, so it works out very well. And they've also been in talk with the Orioles about using Camden Yards as well. Maybe on those conflicting days. And either way, even if they can only use one stadium for a while, that could give them enough time to maybe get Buffalo into good shape.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a thing, create some jobs, I guess.
Yeah, or maybe they take advantage of the Nashville one for a short time. Use that.
Yeah, I mean, there's no fans really at this point.
No,
so I guess theoretically you could just play it like, say, Yankee Stadium or Fenway Park, and you just pretend to be the home team at that point.
Yeah,
although the only thing that concerns me though is the home and away side. Which side do you sit on?
I'd say the bigger concern is that the road team is now suddenly playing in very familiar territory, and even if they're on the road, they still have that home field advantage.
Yeah, but at this point, there's not really much of an option.
You have to take what you can get.
Yeah.
But
some teams are better on the road some years. So.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays have a stacked lineup. That pitching's much improving. We should see Nate Pearson potentially at some point down the stretch, especially if they're in contention.
Mm-hmm. So Blue Jays could be good. Actually, speaking also of the Blue Jays, one of the younger players that I've been following, Vladdy Jr. He's been given that switch from third base to first base now. So I guess the thought process there was get away from that hot corner, focus more on first base, and that sort of eases his defensive liabilities, I guess, so he can focus more on hitting. Which I love his swing. Is it as smooth as his dad's? No. But I think it's a damn good swing. I like his attitude. And I don't know, I guess he's just got to stretch more and embrace his inner Mark Teixeira. Yeah, well,
they said it was a matter of when, not if, this would happen. Last year he played 96 games at third base, committed 17 errors for a .936 fielding percentage. That's not good at the hot corner.
No.
And it could be that DH, much like his father, that DH is in his future. But considering he's young, and they have other players that could go around there. That the Blue Jays are the All-Star Juniors with Cavan Biggio and Lourdes Gurriel and Bo Bichette, among other names.
Yeah, I think the Blue Jays could be one of those surprise teams that if they get hot. But the only problem, though, is really getting through the Yankees and the Rays.
Yeah.
I'm not saying Boston's going to be an easy cakewalk, but I don't think they're going to be as dangerous after unloading and losing some people
to
surgeries. So Uh, the Blue Jays could sneak in if Cleveland decides to sell everything off again. And if Houston, Oakland, Texas, and Los Angeles all decide to play 500 ball against each other, which could happen.
Yeah, but they'll be in
Toronto
the
could sneak in.
they'll be in the mix for the wild card easily.
Yeah.
Maybe probably not the division, but definitely the second wild card, if not the first.
Yeah. So do you have a rundown of who you think the spots are going to be?
Yeah. Well, the American League, I see the Yankees and the Twins easily making their divisions. The West, I could see as much as as I expect the Astros to dominate once again, and the A's to pull something out of a hat. I could all, as I said, I can see the Angels making a run for it. They're with decent pitching and the right offense to go around. Remember Joe Adele, the number one prospect in baseball, is expected to make his major league debut at some point too. And he's said even if he's 50% of Mike Trout, that's still very good. Yeah. So that lineup is dangerous if the pitching can hold it together. Wild card, interesting. I said the Rays, the Blue Jays, the White Sox. Remember, they have a lot of young people coming up, and they loaded. The White Sox, the A's, and the Angels, all making in the mix. So that's 5 teams in the mix for wild card. The National League, a lot murkier, just because there's so many more. There's much more parity in the league. So I do ultimately see the Nationals kind of finally having a competent season where the bullpen actually is not abhorrent, to put it mildly, and they win the division. But anyone that's not the Marlins could win the NL East. In the NL Central, the team that benefits the most in the Central are the Reds of all people. They have a lot of DH type outfielders that they can now rotate. So with solid pitching and an offense.
Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, I'm actually going to be bold and say they win the Central over the Cardinals and Brewers. I also see the Cubs finally falling apart, and starting on that rebuild after 2 straight years of not doing anything to complement.
How does that make an impression for Ross, being a first-year manager, only getting 60 games after not a complete teardown, but little uncertainty?
Well, it'll show that Joe Maddon wasn't the problem, that it was the roster construction. And finally, in the West, the Dodgers are the heavy favorite, but don't count out those Diamondbacks. Those Diamondbacks, you never know if they're going to have a rough season or a very good season.
Especially in those snazzy uniforms.
Yeah. And now for the wild card. The wild card, as I said,
it's even worse.
Yeah. So I said every team in the East not named the Marlins, so that's 3 right off the bat. Behind the Reds, you have the Brewers and Cardinals. That's 5. And then in the West, as I said, Diamondbacks, the Padres could finally be their year.
Yeah, if they start clicking.
And you never know with the Rockies that the Rockies, their pitching can just.
They've been up and down.
Yeah, if their pitching clicks, they're as good as anyone. Otherwise, there's
San Francisco, I think they're going to finish in the basement because Posey's not even.
San Francisco's in the middle of a rebuild. Don't expect them to make them. But that's 8 teams.
It's like half the league.
Yeah, that's over half the league in the NL that can be in the mix. So this is going to be an exciting 60 games.
I think for me, I'm going to have the Yankees win their division. I'm going to give it to the Twins for the Central. As much as I want to say
as much as you don't want to say the Astros?
The default would be to say the Astros. It's just so tough, that West. Like, part of me wants to say, oh, maybe they'll drop to second and maybe the Athletics take that number one spot. Um,
I I will say the one thing going for you is that Astros rotation is the worst it's been in a while. They have
yeah,
Greinke, they have Verlander,
that's really
but
it.
one their I think Jose Urquidy, I believe that's who it is, expected to compete for a rotation spot. He's out with COVID-19. The rest of the rotation is likewise young or returning from injury, and so behind that 1 and 2, there are some question marks in that rotation.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna put the Athletics taking that number one spot in the West. I like them. As for the wild cards, I think it's gonna be Los Angeles and Houston. I think Tampa Bay might just miss out, but I don't know. That's tough there. As for the National League, I kind of like the Braves. I kind of do. Um, Central, like you said, there's a lot of good pieces for the Reds. I believe in Trevor Bauer. Um, but I think it might be a Milwaukee year again. And then for the West, I think it's the Dodgers. As for the wild card, probably. It depends on the health of the Mets.
The National League wild card, I'm honestly going to
so
say it's
tough.
impossible to predict.
It's so hard.
Especially during a short 60-game season. Anyone could
Yeah.
get on a run. Basically,
Yeah.
in 2 weeks we can come back to this and say anyone who's gone 1-10 has no shot.
Yeah. I mean, I've said it in the past before. We saw the San Francisco Giants lead the league in wins and then barely eke into the second wild card.
Yeah.
After falling apart in the second half of the season.
Conversely, the Washington Nationals, who won the
Yep.
World Series, if the season ended after 60 games like it is this year, they would not have made the playoffs by a long shot.
This is an up in the air thing. We don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see. It's exciting. I'm excited for Thursday night.
Yeah. Thursday night is the Yankees at Washington D.C. and I believe it's the Dodgers at Giants or Giants at Dodgers, one way or the other.
One way or another.
And then everyone else starts the next day.
Yes.
So you have opening night on Thursday, opening day on Friday, and then it's off to the races.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, what else is also coming back up? We have some hockey. So unlike the Toronto Blue Jays, the NHL teams will be playing in Canada. So we have that, which is, I guess, a little confusing because isn't one of the hub cities Toronto?
Yeah, well, again, it was the problem with Major League Baseball.
It's moving back and forth.
Yeah, it was moving back and forth, and even if they were fine with the Blue Jays, they probably wouldn't be fine with the Rays or the Marlins coming up and down.
Yeah. So there's that. As for the New York Rangers, just to keep it a little brief, the Rangers forward Brendan Lemieux has been suspended the first 2 games of the team's best of 5 series against the Carolina Hurricanes because of an illegal check to Colorado Avalanche forward Junis.
Yeah, and that was
Donskoy. I'm sorry, I butchered that horribly. But he hit someone after he took a shot on net, sort of blindsided him. Was it a dirty hit? I guess technically, but I've seen way worse stuff. I mean, the guy did have a head injury afterwards, so I guess that added to it.
Yeah, and also the fact that he's a repeat offender.
Yeah. But I've seen Alex Ovechkin do like way dirtier stuff, and he's completely fine. But it all depends on who the person is, really.
Yeah.
But also with the Rangers, they've got 3 capable goalies for the most part, with veteran leader Henrik Lundqvist. They've got Alexander Georgiev, and then Igor Shesterkin. Lundqvist started off as the goaltender beginning of the season, and then towards the end of the middle of the season, Georgiev got a bulk of the games, and then right before Corona shut everything down in March, Lundqvist had played in like 3 or 4 games in like February and March combined, and then Shesterkin went 10-2 during his run and looked really, really good. He's been basically the heir to Lundqvist's throne. He's been declining these last several years. And it's a matter of who's going to play against Carolina. I mean, I think Georgiev is the odd man out. He's not going to get the start. Lundqvist went 3-0, has a really good track record against Carolina to begin with. And while his numbers weren't very good at the beginning of this season, and they've been trending down these last few years, as I've said, but the Rangers were sort of still in like a transition-y period, trying to figure out what their lineup was going to be. The defense wasn't very good, but as the season progressed, and they sort of made a push to say, hey, maybe we could have gotten a higher seed in the playoffs had we been able to finish our last like 12 games.
Had we actually worked hard.
Yeah. Well, hockey's so fickle, though. It's not like you're not working hard.
No, I know.
Sometimes it is, but it's just finding that team chemistry. Like, our friend Owen, when we did 2-on-2 drills in soccer, we were the 2 best players on the team just because our team chemistry was so good. I mean, when I played club ball, I just gelled better with those guys than when I did in high school ball. It's just that you pick up on certain things, and that's sort of what the Rangers finally found. But Shesterkin definitely is younger. He's playing better, but Lundqvist has got some really great numbers in the playoffs. He doesn't have any cup wins, although they should have won against the Kings, but that's a discussion for another day again.
Yeah, as we get closer to the
Rangers, I think it's going to be Shesterkin, but I guess it depends on what happens there. But out of the 800 or so players in the NHL bubbles, they've been tested like every other day this past week for about a little bit more than 2,000 tests, and they've only had like 2 cases, which is incredible.
Yeah, it's really good how
the NBA hasn't had anything.
Yeah, they've had players test it, but not inside the Disney bubble.
But before they go, like Russell Westbrook, he's now tested negative twice before he rejoined. Guys like Zion Williamson, and he had to leave because of a family issue. So he's going to be back hopefully. So it's good that this is being contained, because we were a little afraid that these spikes would happen, but it looks like these bubbles are going to be good, even if some of the NBA players don't seem to like the food at Disney, the portion sizes.
Well, stop. Don't go. This is why you don't go to Chef Mickey's, and you go to Be Our Guest. That the food is better in some Disney places than others because they have weird aspects of caring for some places and then letting others just die out.
And you would know that because you go, and I have not been there since I was like 4.
When this is over, we should take a few days and just I'll show you around everything.
Yeah. Well, you got those tickets you won.
Yeah,
you put them to good use.
Yeah, but it's been really good how sports has been taking good. Like Major League Baseball, they've had the most cases in their camp by far, but it's only been like about most of them have been caught on intake, and the ones that have been after intake have been contained. That you haven't seen a player catch it and then it spreads to other players and coaches. It's just that one player and then it stops.
Now the one sport a lot of these baseball is a little bit easier to sort of control it because you're sort of standing all around from each other. Hockey, you've got like all your gear on for the most part, and you're not really, unless you're like spitting on someone. And it's gonna be interesting because hockey is really the only sport that you're allowed to like actually sort of allowed to fight. Yeah. But that might be like really like
that probably will not be allowed.
Yeah, that's probably not going to be a thing. especially if you're like ripping helmets off and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
No, they're like with
the NBA is
yeah.
a little bit different because you passed around that ball, you're sweating on it, and
Yep.
you saw it with Steve Nash years ago with the towel incident where one guy cleaned his armpits with it and then passed the towel and wiped the face.
And then Rudy Gobert touching all the microphones before while he had the virus.
So it's basketball is going to be a little trickier, but the NFL, these guys are tackling each other for 3 hours. They're on top of each other, dogpiling. I think there was talks on getting some sort of like plexi sort of thing to go in front of their masks.
Yeah, like a plexi helmet.
But that's going to fog up if you're getting deep into the season.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure exactly how that'll work entirely.
Yeah, but the bigger problem is what are they doing in general? And this is
so
everyone was mocking the MLB for fighting all over stuff with salary and the virus testing and all that. NFL is about to experience the exact same thing.
Right now they've got I'm going to dub it like the 5% rule, at least for testing. They said for the first 2 weeks of training camp, they'll be tested every day. And then after 2 weeks, if everything is below 5%, then it'll go to every other day. If the rate is not below 5%, they'll continue everyday testing. If it is below 5% and they switch to every other day, if at all it goes above 5%, then they will go back to every day.
Yeah.
And
for example, that I believe baseball is every other day, or at the moment, so they would be following that. But the NFL Players Association has made daily testing a high priority, and this all comes after a very coordinated effort by guys like Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, Russell Wilson, and others on Twitter, where within minutes or seconds of each other, they highlighted issues that players had with what would be happening. For example, from J.J. Watt, saying that we still don't. This was before all the testing. We still don't know if there will be daily testing, every other day testing. We don't know how positive COVID tests will be handled. What will happen if a player decides to opt out of the season, so on and so forth. And it's good that the NFL is starting to address this. They had this and also have proposed a 6-part expansion of the practice squads from 12 to 16 players, and that if there is a positive COVID test on the main roster, that a practice squad player could be promoted at any time to replace that player. Previously, there was a 4 p.m. deadline the day before.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about the NFL is because it wasn't in the middle of the season, the Super Bowl already ended in February, and their season doesn't start. I mean, practices start in the summer.
Yeah, practice squads start next week.
Yeah, but their actual games don't really start till September, so they sort of still have time to get things in place, learn and see what these other professional teams have been doing, what's worked, what hasn't worked, because we're learning now even day by day now more about this virus, of certain things. So I don't think it was the NFL purposefully not telling the players what was happening. Like, I know they needed to get in practice, to get in shape, but I mean, you've seen some of these other guys though, they've been practicing running up hills and staying in shape that way. And I mean, if you're a professional, you should know pretty much how to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Obviously, actually running routes, catching balls, interacting with the teammates, getting at team chemistry, that's important, and you need actual practice for that. But as for being in shape, you should be able to be a man enough and do that yourself. But I think the NFL was more or less just sort of waiting to see how things were, what routes for health and safety situations they can take to see exactly what was going to be up. So I don't fault the NFL for not giving them an exact outline quite yet. I think as long as they have sort of some general guidelines for now, and as we see how once baseball gets started and basketball and hockey, and they finish their seasons up there,
Yeah.
the NFL can sort of see what's going on. And what's also good too with the NFL is that they only really play one game a week. So if someone is sick or whatever, and they're not showing anything or whatever they do, you can still isolate a little bit easier, I think, compared to some of these other teams that have to play every day or every other day.
Yeah, but still, the NFL Players Association has come back from a very contentious labor agreement that probably only really got pushed over because the virus and players just wanting to get something done so that they don't have to fight over it like baseball did. But it looks like they might take a similar potentially hard line for the testing. A lot of the stuff has what the NFL is doing just came out as we were starting to record, so we don't really know too much about the reaction from the Players Association or players on some of this, but we'll be sure to talk about it as
the NFL
gets closer.
Has canceled 2 of the 4 preseasons already. But the players apparently want all the preseason games to be canceled.
Yeah, and the NFL seems to be wanting to drop down to 1.
Yeah, I mean, because that's television revenue, and that's literally all the NFL is. I mean, that's literally what the Super Bowl is. I mean, it's what it's come down to.
Yeah, and like with other sports, they're already accepting the reality that they won't have fans. The Jets and Giants have already said that they won't be allowed fans to start the season, and most places probably will not.
Yeah. What did actually have fans, though, was Sunday's NASCAR race. There were some fans in there at Texas Motor Speedway, but some of them were a little too close to each other, so I'm not sure how that's going to go. But
they should do what the baseball's doing with the cardboard cutouts. Did you see the one in the Mets where they said the person sent a picture of their dog?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's
actually, I think what they should do is do like one of those concerts Amanda likes, the Miku concerts. Just have like the holograms.
Oh, just have hologram. Yeah, and then there was one. I think it was Michael Kay or David Cohn said, "I'm looking for a thumbs down man, or a Florida Marlins fan. Just looking for when they're cutouts." But
it's like a Where's Waldo.
Yeah. Someone's got to
get one extra run if you can find the player in the stands. Go.
Yeah. 2 runs if you hit him with a ball. But that's about it from us for this week. We're excited to actually be talking about live baseball next week.
As long as things don't go south in these next couple days.
Knock on wood. All right, Joe, it's been a pleasure as always.
All right, same with you, Voldemort. Remember to wash your hands.
Wear your mask.
Remember to wash mine. And wear your face masks, your face shields, and everything else.
Bye, everyone.